Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I call to order the meeting of the Manassas Park Governing Body for Tuesday, June 18th, 2024. First, we have remote participation. Councilmember Amaya has requested to participate remotely. For legal requirements, Council Amaya, please state your location and the reason for remote participation.
Yes, I am in my office, and the reason is personal, work-related.
Okay. Where is your office? I'm not sure that was specific.
I'm sorry, 8270 Shopper Square.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of Councilmember Amaya participating remotely, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, Councilmember Amaya, for joining us electronically. There are a number of changes to the agenda this evening, changes that were not on the original agenda that was uploaded to the city's website. Senator Rome will not be able to join us this evening, so the legislative presentation has been removed. She will be tentatively joining us on July 16th. We are also adding the Kroger opioid settlement agreement per request of city attorney. It will be 10A. Councilmember Carrera has proposed an increased discussion to the governing body salary / stipend. That will be 11H. There will be there's also a late addition, and it is going to be, excuse me, terribly sorry, I thought I had it. It will be 10B, and it is a proposed revision to the Second Amendment to purchase and sale agreement for T.J. Hassan property in Phase 2 of City Center. My understanding is we have no closed session this evening. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
Move adoption.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Please join us in a moment of silence, and Councilmember Hampton, would you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
and justice for all.
Liberty and justice for all.
We have no one signed up to make public comment, but I would like to thank all staff who put together the wonderful event, the Juneteenth celebration that we celebrated on just this last Friday evening. It was well received. Everybody had a wonderful time, well attended as well. So thanks to all staff. We really appreciate it. Was there anyone who would like to make public comment who has not signed up? Okay. Anyone on the governing body who would like to make public comment? You?
No.
Okay.
I was pointing down the other way.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a reminder, folks, that tomorrow from 10 to 12, we will be cleaning up Russia Branch. So we just meet us at the VRE station around 10 a.m.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, there's no public hearing this evening. Moving on to our recognition. We have a recognition of a Manassas Park resident, Mr. Ahmed Nabil. He is the winner of the 2024 Kathleen Seefeld Award for Outstanding Individual Artist for his choreography and his dancing artistry. We want to highlight his talent. He joins us this evening with his wife, Alice Donardi, who is also a dancer. Mr. Nabil has numerous degrees in ballet and choreography and is also a recipient of numerous awards and recognition. But the Seefeld Award is an incredible honor. First, we invite Mr. Nabil to come to the microphone and share his artistic journey. Then after that, we'll view a video of their talent. And then after that, the city has a certificate of recognition. Yes. Please speak directly into the microphone so the folks at home can hear.
Thank you for having me today, and it's my honor to be here with all of you. My name is Ahmed Nabil Khalil, and I'm director for the Cairo Opera House in Egypt. And I joined Manassas Ballet Theater since 2018, and I work as a choreographer and ballet master for Manassas Ballet Theater. And we have our ballet studio in Maryland. It's called Columbia Youth Ballet.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, can we have staff run the video now, please?
1 second, please.
Okay. That was exquisitely beautiful. We have a certificate of recognition here, so let me bring it down to you.
Ah, very nice.
Absolutely. My one. 1, 2, 3. One more, please. Yes.
Yes, yes, you're here.
One, there, 1, 2. One more, 1, 2. All right.
Okay, thank you. You're more than welcome to enjoy the rest of the meeting with us, but we understand if you have things that you need to do, so that's fine. Okay. Moving on to 6B, we have a proclamation, and it is a proclamation honoring the International Embassy. Whereas the International Embassy was founded to help children that have been victims of human trafficking within the immigration portion of their journey, and whereas TIE spreads the word on the growing illness of child trafficking, an illness that a vaccine cannot prevent. It takes a village to form the basis to be able to point out and eradicate the issue. And whereas the founder of TIE, Mr. Nelson Figueroa, was put into a situation where 2 little girls had been found to have been trafficked to the U.S., an embassy from the little girl's country reached out to our founder for help. He was part of a team of diplomats that helped retrieve the girls, and then he took over the immigration process to allow the girls to legally stay in the U.S. He was extremely depressed and sad about what happened to these little girls, but they taught him how valuable life is, and no matter how hard life was, it was worth a fight for the right to live. And whereas the Asian teak market was formed from an idea on how to spread the word. Now therefore, I, Jeanette Rischel, Mayor of the City of Manassas Park, Virginia, and on behalf of the Manassas Park governing body, hereby recognize the International Embassy for helping children all over the world that have been victims of human trafficking, and urges residents to recognize their contributions. Do we have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. And we have Mr. Nelson Figueroa with us this evening. We have this proclamation to present, and we invite you to come to the microphone after I give you the proclamation and to share your thoughts with us.
One more, please. 1, 2. Okay. Thank you.
Sir, please share your thoughts with us at the microphone if you're comfortable to do that.
So thank you, everybody, for this. This is the first time that after so much, forgive me, I'm losing my voice because this started a while ago with 2 little girls. And it's been a hard journey. and forgive me because I tend to talk too much, okay? So my ambassadors and my students say, they tell me, the problem with you is not how you start, it's how we get you to stop. So please forgive me on that one. But to be brief, it's something that you cannot do alone. We started this with a mission, and we had to reach out to embassies, we had to reach out to three-letter agencies, police officers, everything to be able to do this, what we do. And it's a hard journey to see and to hear some of the stories that these children have. But I believe in that there's a script writer that writes the script for us in our lives, but it's up to us to be able to enact and work on that script so we can create that story that the script writer wants for us. And without the people that have been part of this script writer's idea, we've not been able to be here today. So instead of talking about us, I just want to talk about the people that have helped us. Today I have with me 4 of them. When we were in our little nonprofit, because we're little, and we actually, if anybody wants to support us, we're open for support, okay? It's a thing that we have to pay out of our pockets, literally. And people like Juby and her amazing husband, let me just say that there, Grady, Unsu, and her husband Kyung, they've always been there for me. And when I feel down and out, because this, if you've worked as an attorney, anybody here works as an attorney, you know the stresses that the stories put on you. So these people are the people that re-energize me. These people are the people that make me want to go forward. These people have done things for me that I have never asked for them. They just come and do it. And then you have these little special people, not little, but special people that just pop up also out of somewhere that you don't know that they'll be a blessing for you. And that's somebody that's sitting next to me, also Miss Melissa Williams, that just met her, and she's an amazing person. She's always full of energy, always full of positive energy. And sometimes that's all we need. And these little girls taught me one thing after the end, and with this, I promise I will end they taught me, we always look for excuses to fight, to complain. But they taught me to look for the excuse to do something good. Look for the excuse to win. And with that, I will shut up and walk away, because that's why I'm married, because people just, the girls just say, oh, he talks too much, so let's not even get there. So with that, I appreciate it, and thank you so much. This is an honor and a privilege to do all this work.
Well, we appreciate the work that you're doing, and we applaud you.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we're moving on to 7. We have a presentation regarding the WIOA consortium. Thank you. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. I'm David Hunn, Executive Director of the Virginia CareerWorks Northern Region. We are one of 14 local workforce areas in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We represent the counties of Fairfax, Loudoun, and Prince William, the cities of Manassas Park, Manassas, Falls Church, and Fairfax. All told, we represent nearly 2.1 million citizens, job seekers, as well as tens of thousands of employers. Tonight, I wanted to give you a brief overview of our work. At the same time, you'll be considering a little bit later in your meeting our consortium agreement. And just in terms of background, that agreement is considered by all of the local jurisdictions every 4 years. And the jurisdictions that I mentioned just a moment ago have agreed, and this is going on close to 45 years, to work as a consortium. And therefore, then the funds are pooled, and then we're able to administer this as one entity across the entire Northern Virginia region. I have a brief PowerPoint. I'll go ahead and move ahead, and let's make sure I can control it. Let's see here. Ms. Connor, I might need some help in terms of moving it forward. just with the mouse, okay. Then we'll just do that. That's great. Yeah, we'll go back. Thanks. Okay, thank you. Sorry. So as you can see the Commonwealth of Virginia map, we're the Northern Virginia Area 11. There's 14 local workforce areas in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Across the nation, every local area in the nation has a local workforce board. Our funding is mostly federal money coming from Congress down to the Department of Labor, down to Governor Youngkin, and then down to the localities. And then you'll see that spread across the rest of the nation. In our case, the money comes into the Virginia Community College system. You might have heard that Governor Youngkin has created a new Department of Labor, which will be the new funding agent as of July 1st. And so we'll be working through his appointees, his Secretary of Labor, among all of the other staff. In our case, we have 5 workforce centers throughout the region. 3 in Fairfax County, 1 in Prince William County, and 1 in Loudoun County. And these are the bricks and mortar buildings that we're able to offer all of our services for free for both job seekers and employers. And really, individuals are welcome to come in at any time. Assuming that they meet eligibility requirements, one of the biggest is that they must be eligible to work in the United States, that we would make sure that is in place. And then we're able to provide free job counseling, employment services. If there's a need for skills training, we can pay for that as well in terms of the variety of the different occupations that someone either is interested in or has had past experience and is looking to get back into the workforce. You'll notice as well 2 red spots on the map, and we're one of the only local workforce areas in Virginia to have our services at the local jails in Fairfax County and in Prince William, Manassas. We're working with offenders who are in preparation to be leaving their incarceration. We're hoping to make sure that their resumes are in place, that their network with employers is starting before they do leave. So we're grateful for doing that. We've been doing that work for close to 17 years in Fairfax and the last 5 years in Prince William. Interestingly, for a region that has such low unemployment, and the statistics which suggest in April and May, we're in the ballpark, our region, of about 2.3% unemployment. There's still many people looking for work or they're underemployed, and we're able to work with them as well. But as you can see on this chart, through April, our centers that I just highlighted have seen over 44,000 visitors, which is, I always find that to be very remarkable in terms of the numbers of individuals served. And our funding is broken down into 3 categories. One is low-skilled, low-income adults over 18. The second category are dislocated workers, those are people who are well-skilled, well-educated. They've simply lost their job through no fault of their own. Company has moved, has closed down operations. And then the third is the youth program. I refer to them as young adults, typically ages 17 to 24. Generally, we are focused on the at-risk population, those who might not have finished high school or those who have finished high school and have not gone on to further education. We find that they have many barriers to their job search, whether it's having literacy or numeracy below their grade, typically 8th or 9th grade. They might have a disability. They might have been involved in the justice system. They might be a teenage parent. So there's a variety of challenges that we would want to work with that population to help them really find that first rung on the labor market effort. Interestingly, our services are virtual. You don't have to walk into our centers, but the pandemic changed the way we do business, and our state has allowed us to move into virtual services as long as the customer has ability to either access our services through the internet, either their phone or their home computer. But all of those centers that I mentioned do have free internet access, high-speed internet access, free computers as long as someone can find their way to the center. Over the course of this year, you can see the level of support. The vast majority of our services are the low-skilled, low-income adults. For the up through May, roughly 441 of those individuals were enrolled. You can see almost at the opposite end of the spectrum, only 63 dislocated workers. If we were talking before the pandemic, it would have been exactly the opposite. We would have had 90% of our cases would be dislocated workers and the like, but we've seen that shift. So we're really focusing on these adults, what skills they need to find their way back into the workforce. And of course, the WIOA Youth Program, our young adults, we're the third largest in the state, and we think that that will grow even more depending on funding availability. And you can see the breakout by counties, Fairfax, Loudoun, and Prince William. And then my final slide is, I'm sorry, I'll come back to that in just a moment. You can see how we're spending our training money. And it's really focusing on what are the occupations that have very few barriers for entry and where we can train someone very quickly. And I'm thinking between weeks up to 6 to 7 months. We would not pay for someone to go back for a degree, but we would help them move into commercial driving, which is a huge opportunity right now, multiple different types of jobs within the healthcare industry, and then the technology industry as well, entry-level and mid-level positions there. And finally, you might have the most interest in residents from Manassas Park who have been served over the last year. As you can see, up through April, we have served 8 adult job seekers, 1 dislocated worker job seeker, and 1 young adult job seeker. Been able to move 5 of them into commercial driving with their licenses and moving them into employment, 1 certified nursing assistant, and 1 certified phlebotomist as well. We think that's an opportunity. Generally, we're putting the CDL drivers in, as you can see, they're roughly $44,000 a year. We've seen it go even higher. School bus drivers are making $25 an hour right now, so you can see that there's still a lot of competition for individuals with that license. As well as the healthcare industry, we see a variety of different types of healthcare opportunities. The CNA is typically one of your entry-level opportunities. I'll stop there, but if I could just mention that our board is a 51% business-led board of directors. Mm-hmm. Each of the localities has an opportunity to nominate an employer, a business person to serve on our board. Mm-hmm. And we have a vacancy for the city of Manassas Park. So I wanted to bring it to your attention today. If you have any interested citizens or employers in the city that would be interested in serving, please have them reach out to me. I can be reached or through Ms. Knights, that we can be contacted. Yeah. Our board meets quarterly, both in person and virtually, and we'd have an opportunity to welcome them if they chose to participate. Wow. I'll stop for any questions that you might have.
Well, thank you. That was a very informative presentation. Thank you for that. Are there any comments or questions? Comments or questions? Councilmember Amaya, we don't want to forget about you. Do you have any questions? Do you have your sound on, Councilmember Amaya? Okay, well, we'll, thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay.
And if I could just take one more second.
Yes.
The consortium agreement that you'll be considering here shortly, and again, it's a routine opportunity for the consortium to be represented. The language has been vetted by both state officials and local officials. We go through this every 4 years, but it's important that we have all of the jurisdictions participating.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Yeah, okay, thanks again. Okay. Okay. Moving on to.
I got a question on that note, though.
Excuse me?
Sorry, I do have one question before we
Yeah.
vote on the consent. Sure. So is with the MOU, is there financial contributions that localities would have to be responsible for?
No, sir. No. This is all federally funded activities. So this is, again, the pooling of the federal funds that would normally come to each individual locality.
Right.
So there's no local contribution at all. I will say that my organization, the SkillSource Group, is a nonprofit organization that is the fiscal agent for the consortium. Okay. And we have a very active grants writing and funds development process that we bring in funding to supplement the federal funds that would normally come to the city.
Excellent. All right, thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on to consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of approval of the minutes of June 4th, 2024, approval of an ordinance incorporating Title 46.2 of the Code of Virginia as amended and reenacted, except those provisions and requirements for which the violation constitutes a felony and which by their very nature can have no application to or within the city, into Section 24-3, and incorporating Article 2, Section 18.2-266 of Chapter 7 of Title 18.2 of the Code of Virginia as amended and reenacted into Section 24-35 as presented. That the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign the 2024-2026 consortium agreement and the Northern Virginia Workforce Development Board umbrella MOU as presented and subject to final city attorney review, and that the governing body appoint a representative to the consortium as the chief local elected official. Do we have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, can I ask a question to Dean?
Yes.
Dean, if you're on, so this is regarding the 9B, the traffic code change. So, I mean, I know this was passed in the, I guess, the General Assembly, but what was the background? So I guess the city will not get fined anymore coming to us? Or we did get fines
Yeah, so
before?
we don't do this. Yeah, so we incorporate by reference all the changes made to the state code. That allows the local courts to apply any fine to the city's coffers instead of going to the state. So for instance, drunk driving, if we don't do this, then any fines associated with a drunk driver that we arrest would not come to us, it would go to the state instead. So this is it's almost pro forma. Every year we do this just to make sure we get our money.
I see. So it goes to the, and then eventually it'll come back to the city, you're saying?
Yeah, if we have it in our code and these people are cited for a violation of city code, then we get the money. If they're cited for a state code violation without us incorporating it by reference, then the state gets the money.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, thank you, Dean. Moving on to 10A is the resolution regarding Kroger opioid settlement.
This is me again. Good evening. So we got another, we've already done this with a lot of other entities, and this is just the latest one to reach a settlement agreement on the class action opioid lawsuit. The various states and entities or localities sued these opioid distributors and producers. So in order for us to get the additional money from this, we need to go ahead and approve this, and then just direct me to go ahead and do whatever's necessary to make it happen. It's the same thing we've done before. This is just Kroger's just being added to the list.
Okay, comments or questions for Dean? Comments? Okay. If there are no questions or comments, the staff recommended motion is that the governing body approve and adopt a resolution approving of the city's participation in the proposed settlement of opioid-related claims against Kroger and its related corporate entities, and directing the city attorney to execute the documents necessary to effectuate the city's participation in the settlement, including the required release of claims against Kroger. Do we have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to 10B, this is also city attorney. My understanding is it's just a briefing with no vote. Is that correct, Dean?
No, actually, we do need a vote.
Oh.
So what's going on with you may remember back in March, we were requested to amend the purchase and sale agreement to allow TJ Hassan and the companies he owns to put the restaurant right in the downtown instead of across the railroad tracks. We did that. You guys approved it, but however, he never saw it and he never signed it, obviously. And when he finally did see it, he voiced some objections to some of the language, particularly the requirement that he stay open 6 days a week. Now, I've talked to Quentin Reynolds, who works for the city and has been the liaison with TJ. And he sent the language over that you have in front of you now. If you look at the red line version, I believe each of you has one of them printed out. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if you look at
We
that
have the
on
red
page
line.
Yes,
one,
yes, we do.
You do have it, good, good.
Yes.
So all I've done there is just change the date, and then I removed in that second, or that first recital, talking about the master plan. There is no master plan attached to this. It's already part of the agreement, so that's just a very minor thing. The meat of it is on page 1 into page 2, where it talks about, where it says that the section 2 is deleted and replaced with the following language. I've just clarified where those buildings are, just to make sure we all understand it. But the meat of it is where he asked that we add the full-service restaurant constructed on parcel A1 is open to serve patrons, and to remove the requirements at least 6 days a week. And I can tell you that Laszlo and I added that solely because we were concerned that there was already a certificate of occupancy on that restaurant pad site, and we didn't want him to buy it and then just let it sit there as an empty building. However, I've been assured that if he doesn't get this done tonight, that he will not be able to sign the franchise agreement tomorrow, and the franchisor is chomping at the bit to get him to get this thing done and built and open. So I had hoped to have the franchise night for you. I haven't received that yet, so I can't verify what it says, but I've been told by Quentin that it does have language in there that he needs to open and have it open to the public, and that there's language in there that should satisfy us, and he's not just going to let it sit there and remain vacant. So with that, I present this to you and ask that you consider it, and if you are okay with it, to approve it tonight so we can get this signed, and he can sign the lease and the franchise agreement tomorrow, and hopefully get this thing open very quickly.
Okay, comments or questions? Yes, sir.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
good.
Yes, ma'am.
So Dean, quick question. On the off chance that they don't sign the agreement, not this one, but the one with the other organization, and it does sit there, what recourse do we have?
None, and that's the concern, is we don't really have, it's just that the only recourse really is that he cannot build that apartment complex. I mean, that's the hook. That's where he's gonna make the money, is building that apartment complex. And we have tied his hands and said that you're not allowed to pull a permit to start construction until you pull a permit for the office building and either the building across the railroad tracks for the restaurant, or you have to have pulled a permit for the restaurant there at the pad site. And then you're not able to open or get a certificate of occupancy, or he's not able to get a certificate of occupancy on the residential building, the apartment building, the one that will make him the money, until he's also got the certificate of occupancy on the office building and either the restaurant across the railroad tracks or the restaurant at this pad site's open to the public, because it's already got a certificate of occupancy. So that is a pretty strong motive for him to move on this, and that's kind of why he's trying to get this done quickly now.
Okay.
But the short answer is we don't have any recourse if he doesn't do it. It's just we're hoping the market will push him into it.
But the recourse would be then, because things are attached, the different permits are attached, certificate of occupancies are attached.
Right.
He can't do one without the other. So that's our only recourse.
Right, so he will not, the big one is the apartment complex, because everybody wants to build apartments now, because that's where the money is. He can't do that. He can't even pull a permit to start doing that, even though he's got the site plan, I believe the site plan approved. He can't start doing that until he's also pulled a permit for the office building and whatever work's necessary over here on this pad site.
Okay.
So it's just I mean, that's the best we can do.
Right.
Because once we sell it, this free alienability from a private property owner.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have a follow-up?
No.
Okay.
Welcome.
Questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just to follow up on that, I mean, shouldn't we have a language in there that states that if he doesn't sign a franchise agreement, that the space comes back to the city? Why would we hold that
Well,
space?
the lot 1A is, we don't own it.
Well, not own it, but yeah,
Either one
but
of
why are
them.
we tying it up if he doesn't get a franchise agreement? let another business open
So
another
the-
restaurant, you know?
But parcel 1A is not owned by the city, it's owned by Norton Scott, and they are trying to lease this out pursuant to the requirements of the comprehensive development agreement we have for phase 3 of the downtown, or the city center development. So we're twice removed from that one. We have direct privity with him on both the residential and office building up there in phase 2, but in phase 3 here, where the parcel 1A is, we don't have privity with him. We sold that to Norton Scott. They are entering into a lease with him. It's actually a lease purchase agreement, I believe, so he'll eventually own it. So we don't really have any recourse there. And we originally had a buyback provision in the stuff over there in phase 2, but banks balked at that and they refused to loan money, so we had to remove that. And that's why we put this provision that he wouldn't, we did the next best thing, which is to tie up the permitting and certificate of occupancy to these other buildings.
No, you understand that. I'm saying if he will pursue another franchise, if this one does not come to fruition?
Well, I would imagine he would, but we can't force him to do that.
Right, so if this franchise doesn't work, he doesn't look for another franchise, then we just have an empty space next door.
Yeah, I would imagine, but keep in mind, he'll be making lease payments to Norton Scott, so he'll have an incentive to either get out of his lease or to rapidly find another restaurant to put it in there. Because his lease payments, he's gonna be making them regardless.
Right. Okay.
But
Councilmember Moore?
he said he's gonna sign the franchise agreement tomorrow, so there will be a franchise agreement there,
Right.
and he'll have an incentive to get moving on that as well.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Dean, what was his concern about not wanting the restaurant to stay open 6 days a week? Because most
Well, he
restaurants
just
are
didn't
open.
want to be bound by that.
Oh, okay.
Right, and that's what we thought too. We were thinking, why not 6 days a week? But he doesn't want to be bound to that if the market's not, if the market's not there for that, then he doesn't want to be opening on, Monday mornings or Monday, say, if there's no market on Monday. He wants to be allowed, per the franchise agreement, to operate it as he sees fit.
Okay.
And we just pulled that out of thin air, to be honest with you. We figured that was a reasonable request. And quite frankly, I was shocked that he hadn't seen this amendment back when it was approved, because he was the one driving it back then. So I'm not really sure what happened. I can't deal with him directly because we're negotiating, so I'm relying on intermediaries. So I can't really tell you what happened.
Thanks, Dean.
Does the fact that he does not want to be forced to open 6 days a week, is there a financial component to that?
I think it's probably more just market driven. Like, if there's no clientele on a particular day, then why should he be forced to stay open? That's the key. He's committing to a full service restaurant open to the public per the franchise agreement. And the franchise agreement, I haven't looked at this one. I was hoping to tonight before this, but I've looked at other franchise agreements, and they're very strict on what you have to do because they want to make money and they make a percentage of your take. So I would like to see it. I was hoping to have seen it, but I didn't get it. So I apologize for not having that in front of you.
I would imagine most franchises want their establishments open as much as possible. So that's a curiosity, definitely. Any other comments or questions?
I have a question. Mr. Cars, quick question. This can't be delayed to our meeting next Tuesday, so that way if he signs a franchise agreement, he'd have this in place, or?
Well, he wants to have this in place. Right now, he technically cannot, it wouldn't help him any to sign this right now, so he's taking a financial risk if we don't have this signed right now, and I don't think he wants to take that risk. He wants to make sure he has it in hand before he signs the franchise agreement. He has to sign the franchise agreement tomorrow or they're going to yank it. He's been delaying long enough where they're getting tired of it and they want it done now.
Okay.
And that's why I'm forced to bring this to you tonight.
Okay. We did not receive a recommended motion, Dean. Could you state the recommended motion?
Excuse me, I got one more question.
Sure.
Oh, wait, Councilmember Hampton has a question.
Dean, would we find out when he signs the franchise agreement, and would we be told that it's been signed?
I can ask for that. It's not a condition in there right now, and we're at this point, this is what we've negotiated so far. So if we wanted to negotiate putting something in this,
No.
we'd have to go back to him.
No, I'm just curious that
But
if,
I will find out. So Quentin will know and
Okay.
Quentin can tell me, I'll know when the lease is signed as well.
okay.
Because that's
I have
one of
a
the
question.
requirements of this, that they have the lease signed.
I think Yessie has a question. Yessie has a question.
Okay.
Yes.
Councilmember Amaya?
Yes, Dean, if they don't want 6 days as a minimum, what are they proposing to be open? Just anytime they want? There's no specific time?
No, there is nothing specific in the agreement that we have here. I imagine that there is something in the franchise agreement, but I can't guarantee that because I haven't seen it. But,
And you won't,
I'm
and you
sorry.
won't be able to see that franchise agreement?
Well, he said he was gonna send it to me. I can check my email to see if I have it yet, but yeah, I'm looking right now. I don't, let's see.
Could we consider putting 5 days versus 6 days for him to be open as a minimum?
Well, again, we'd have to negotiate that with him, and at this point, we're in kind of the stage where this agreement is what it is. If you,
So in other words, he's asking us to take it off completely, otherwise he won't be able to sign the franchise agreement?
yes, and I will, well, not that he won't be able to sign the franchise agreement, but he's not comfortable with the 6 days a week. And I just want to point out that it was not, the 6 days a week was not in part of the original agreement. Laszlo and I added that for the Second Amendment, only because the certificate of occupancy has already been received for the pad site, and we thought that if we could just throw that in there, it'd be an added incentive. I thought that he was okay with it, but he claims that he's never seen that language before, and that caused a problem when we sent it over to him to sign a couple days ago.
What was the original agreement?
So the original agreement, there's the original agreement, and then there's the First Amendment. So the original agreement didn't anticipate this stuff. You remember, and the First Amendment is when we said, okay, we're going to remove the buyback stuff, but we're going to put into place this other requirement that you cannot build the residential until you have the office built. Okay, and then he came in and he said he wanted to tie in all this other stuff, this other property. So we had the First Amendment added this additional property across the railroad tracks, and so we removed the requirement for the buyback, but we put in these conditions that he had to build a restaurant in the office building before he could build the residential. And then for the Second Amendment, he wanted to move the restaurant from across the railroad tracks to the downtown area, which seemed like a no-brainer. Everyone said they liked that idea. So the change was made, and instead of just making a simple change to say, okay, you can have it either across the railroad tracks or in downtown, we put on for the downtown site, he had to be open for 6 days a week.
Okay.
And that was just something Laszlo and I kind of just came up with and threw in there as just a safeguard. And only because the certificate of occupancy was already issued for that building.
But it kind of makes sense. It makes sense since it's a restaurant and it's going to be in the downtown area, you want it to be open as much as possible, but
you would think.
If the franchise agreement has a different number, and he wants an answer tonight, that's kind of hard to decide.
I know, and I don't like putting this before you like this. The only thing is that I've been told that if we can't remove that tonight, then he's not going to sign the franchise agreement tomorrow, and the franchisor is going to withdraw. So that's how it's been put to me. I haven't talked to the franchisor, but that's how it's presented.
So it sounds to me like he wants to back out.
No, I don't think he wants to back out. I think he wasn't prepared for the 6 days a week, which wasn't in the First Amendment. It was something that Laszlo and I added to the Second Amendment.
So are you recommending for us to go ahead and take it off completely so he can sign the agreement?
Yes, I sent out, I think you received it by email. If you check, you should see both the clean version and the red line version attached to the
Okay.
email I sent right before the meeting started. And again, I'm sorry for the late delivery. This has all been happening last minute. And I've been
Okay.
trying to keep it together, so it'll keep moving forward. But he's asked that you consider that. My recommendation is if you want that restaurant in the downtown area and you want that All-American Steakhouse, this is the way to get it for the franchise. He's not going to be, he says he's not going to be able to sign the franchise agreement until he has this lease amendment or this amendment in hand and he can sign the lease. So I can't really recommend one way or another. It really depends upon what the governing body wants to happen. If you want the All-American Steakhouse, then this is the best chance we have. If you're willing to wait and let him try to find another restaurant, or actually Norton Scott would probably have to go out and find someone else to fill that site, then just vote no against it.
If I might have a comment.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Councilmember Amaya, do you have a follow-up?
No, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about this, the language being dismissed from this amendment. The franchise, especially in the hospitality industry, the franchise agreements, you'll see that they want them open 7 days a week, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m.,
Yeah.
whatever it is. I think the only reason this might have caught him off guard is because the holidays do fall in. Like say July 4th, he might want to close during the holidays. You know what I'm saying? So now he's saying, oh, I'm mandatory 6 days a week, but July 4th is now a holiday that's going to take away, I want to give my staff a day off. So I think that's the language. I think that's why he was just like, let me make that discretion when that time comes. Then furthermore, I think the lease between Norton Scott and their tenants also dictates the hours. So most landlords will also want open 7 days a week. So I'm not too worried about them minimizing the days.
Okay.
Yeah, if I just add that comment, the lease between Norton Scott and the gentleman is pretty expensive. He's got every incentive to open, to make that rent payment.
Okay. Vice Mayor Mensing,
So my question was to Keith, what is Quentin?
can you speak
What
directly?
what is Quentin's opinion on this?
He's definitely recommended this. This is the closest we've gotten to getting the steakhouse in. We've been working on this for almost 2 years. Like, this is the closest we've gotten. The fact that he wants us to work on this tonight so they can sign the agreement tomorrow just shows me that he wants to do this as well. It's going to take us a lot more effort to find a new restaurant.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments or questions? You look puzzled.
Oh, no, I'm ready to vote.
You're ready to,
I'm
okay.
just waiting for
okay.
you.
Okay. Dean, could you please state the motion?
Yes, I recommend the governing body approve the Second Amendment to Purchase and Sale Agreement with TJ Hassan as presented and subject to final city attorney review.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? We have one abstention, Councilmember Amaya.
I think that was a
Or
tie.
one opposed,
It's
excuse
aye.
me.
Aye.
She's
There's a
an
yes.
No, it's
She's an
not.
aye.
It's
Oh,
an
she-
aye.
Oh, it's the delay. Okay. I'm sorry, Councilmember Amaya. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you all for considering this on such
Yeah.
short notice.
Okay, thank you, Dean. We appreciate the work you've done on that. Okay, moving on to 11A, ordinance FY25 budget and fees.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the governing body. I think I'm up here for the next 4 items, so I'll be sticking around. Before you vote on the ordinance for the fiscal year 25 budget, I just want to provide a couple of refresher at a high level. If you have any specific questions, Tony has the Appendix C pulled up and we can address. So looking at the, on the left-hand side is the table that is found in the agenda item. A couple of highlights. The total general fund operating and capital went up about 16%. That's a little misleading because transportation account for about 13 million of that. So a lot of it was transportation and via grant funded. For the water and sewer, it decreased slightly by 14%, and that is by most of our enterprise fund. The decrease is primarily due to CIP spending, and so for water sewer is about $3 million less in CIP. And for the stormwater fund, about a decrease about 12%. Again, that's driven by about $400,000 decrease in CIP spending. And then for solid waste, an increase of 6%, and that's really just inflation as well as software contract costs. School budget as approved by the school board, and then in total for the city budget, general fund operations or capital, school, et cetera, is about $187 million, and that's including double counting of both city contributions to the school and to capital. Real estate tax rate reduction of 2.5 cents from 1.43, and then the model does include the 3% COLA for staff.
Any last minute comments or questions, or have we covered this sufficiently?
Yeah, covered it.
Okay. Staff recommend, you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Will the discussion on 11H impact any decision for the budget?
Is that the GB's type? So for, I guess I can kind of make a quick comment on that since we'll
That's what I'm
discuss
saying.
it.
Should we have that discussion before this vote, or would it affect anything? I don't
Well,
know.
I think it was for fiscal 26.
Well, if I could jump in real quick? Can I jump in real quick? So that's separate. So the budget you just, you're being asked to vote on does include the reversion back to the original amounts you guys were getting paid. Because you will remember every budget since, I think, 2015, there has been a contribution by the governing body members of half their salary towards the general fund. You agreed this year you weren't going to do that. So this budget for FY25 includes the full salary without giving up half of it. What the later discussion is going to be is for an actual pay raise pursuant to recent legislation at the General Assembly level. So they're distinct and separate.
I see, okay. Got it.
Okay. Okay.
Well, my only comment for I guess the budget is, thank you for the staff. You guys worked hard every year, established a budget, and unfortunately, I'm not gonna vote in favor of this budget. I think we could have had an opportunity to not increase taxes and achieve what we wanted to achieve in a balanced way. But I think that's just my opinion on the matter, but that's all I want to say was to the staff that it's nothing about the budget that, just my opinion on the taxes.
Okay. Okay. Well, with that, the staff recommended motion is that the governing body approve and adopt the fiscal year 2025 budget by ordinance as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained?
Opposed.
Motion carries.
One opposed here.
One opposed. Okay, next, moving on to 11B, adoption of fiscal year 2025 tax and fee rates.
So again, just a couple of high-level highlights. For the tax rate, as mentioned before, 1.405 for real estate, 3.50 for personal property. Real estate assessment, we anticipate 8.6% growth. Personal property, about 16%. Sales tax did go down, or we're projecting sales tax to go down by about 50%, but people and meals tax, we're projecting it to go up slightly. Overall, the increase in real estate and personal property is offset by a significant decrease in photo enforcement, which is a good thing because people are complying, but from a revenue perspective, we're seeing a lot of decrease in that line. And then BRS hybrid changes increase, and I mentioned the 3% COLA. For, excuse me, for water and sewer rates, as you can see there, it goes up by about 3% in fiscal year 25, and that is primarily to fund, to pay for UOSA and water purchase. UOSA debt keeps increasing until fiscal year 27 before it levels off. And, just a reminder, we have not increased rates in water and sewer for 10 years prior to 23, so it's been a long time. For stormwater, the 2.5% increase, that is primarily due to DEQ and EPA mandated requirements. Last year model, we projected an increase about 11%, but luckily we were able to find a lot of grant funding, a lot of congressional earmark spending or funding to kind of bring that increase down to 2.5. And then solid waste, really 5% increase, primarily just to stay solvent. That is operating costs and software contract services.
Okay. Comments or questions, or have we discussed this enough? Okay. Seeing none and hearing none, staff recommended motion is that the governing body approve and adopt the fiscal year 2025 tax and fee rates by ordinance as presented.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
One opposition, Councilmember Javed, and abstentions? Okay. That has passed. Moving on to 11C, first quarter appropriations, FY25, city and schools.
Oh, my apologies, I should have mentioned. For resident at home who wants to find the 25 budget, here's the direction to go there. You go on the city website, go to departments. If you see the drop-down menu in finance, you see annual financial reports and adopted budget, and there you'll see the fiscal year 25 budget. Sorry, I missed that. But, in terms of Q1 appropriation, really the only thing I want to point out is for the city, just a reminder, we appropriate 50% of debt and capital as part of the general fund upfront, just because of the timing of capital projects as well as debt payments. And you can kind of see the breakdown there in the table to the right.
Okay. Comments or questions? Okay. There are two recommended motions for this. The first one, that the governing body appropriate $36,977,538 to the city for quarter one of fiscal year 2025.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Second motion is that the governing body appropriate $16,524,747 to city schools for quarter one of fiscal year 2025.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Oh my goodness, city manager is still up. Here we go. FY25 proposed meeting calendar. And I want to say thank you very much for highlighting the holidays. That really helps.
So by city ordinance, you all are supposed to adopt the calendar the third Tuesday of July. But obviously I need to give you some data for you to kind of think about. So on the left-hand side, as you can see, is the 24 calendar. On the right-hand side is the 25. A couple of things I want to point out. Essentially, the first thing is we mirror the pattern. So blue is the weekend, red is the regular governing body meetings, and then green is the budget meetings, and yellow are the holidays. We mirror the pattern. So, for example, in July, the third Tuesday, in August, the last Tuesday, etc. So the pattern is the same. However, as you can see, there are a couple months in here where the holiday abuts the actual meetings, and that's one consideration point for you all.
Right.
Take some time to think it over. If you would like to move those meetings, let me know. Just because coming up a holiday is very challenging for staff to get agenda items compiled. So that's one consideration point. And then the other one is on the last Tuesday in May, which is the 27th. That's usually not a budget meeting because we need that date to advertise the budget based on the 10 days requirement.
Okay.
So no vote tonight, just look at this, think it over. Let me know what you would like to do in terms of changes to the red dates, especially those that are adjacent to the holidays, and let me know.
I sort of have a concern about December 3rd because the 27, 28, 29 is a holiday. Will that put extra stress on staff?
I'm sorry, what month, December?
The December 3rd, the meeting of December 3rd, considering that we're coming right off of Thanksgiving, so would that place stress on staff?
Yes, so typically the workflow for staff is for a Tuesday meeting, obviously the Friday morning, I meet with you to kind of discuss, and then by the Wednesday before, staff should have the agenda item to me for review, and so that's going to push a lot of pressure on staff.
Okay.
We could always go light, obviously, for the week that we have holidays, but you can't predict how city operations is going to run, so
Yeah.
Could we eliminate the 3rd?
that's entirely up to you, yeah.
Yeah, how does the
And what
governing
format
body
do you
feel
want
about
that?
that? Yeah.
Maybe consensus via email,
Yeah.
just since we're not taking a vote tonight, it's just
Okay.
data for you all to
Okay.
consider.
Okay. So be thinking whether you would like to go light for the 3rd or eliminate it completely.
Eliminate.
Eliminate it.
Yeah.
Keith, can I,
We don't really have anything really pressing.
I'd just like to interject if I could.
And-
I just wanted to let you guys know that is the meeting where we normally would present the budget amendment.
Yeah, that's right.
The first Tuesday in December.
Okay.
Then perhaps we just move it to a Wednesday.
Would it cause a problem if we did it on the 10th?
We could do that. I guess the only thing would be approving the amendment. I guess you guys would push that back to January, which is kind of the beginning of the next budget cycle.
Okay.
We
Well,
could
if you-
do it, but it's up to you.
We could approve it the same night as it's presented, is that correct?
We can.
It's a tradition of holding it
not- right.
over.
Can
but
you
we-
speak directly?
Oh, it's a tradition that we hold it over a meeting before we approve it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
maybe that December, we could just go
Yeah.
ahead and approve what is presented once we've,
And it
debated it and
shouldn't be
discussed it.
It shouldn't be anything shocking.
No, it should be straightforward.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
Yeah, yeah. Or we could go light on the 3rd. So either one is a workable option, yeah. Is there a concern with any other holiday date that,
I have a concern with November 6th, and the reason why, we have 3 people running for council here. They're working the entire day. Some may have a party the night and have hungover the next day. And that's not me, but November
I'll be
6th.
working the next day.
Yeah, but
I agree.
and November, December are always our late ones, so I think we could go, I don't want anybody,
Yeah, eliminate the
Drinking and
6th and
driving.
just have the 12th.
But then, so here's the thing, though, that's right after a holiday. The 12th is after a holiday.
yeah?
So do we move it from the 12th to the 13th? Or move it to the 18th? Just have one in the month and have it on the
No,
18th?
I mean, I have no problem with the 6th.
We're getting close to Thanksgiving holiday, and people want to take off. Moving it to the 13th is definitely a possibility. We've always tried to stick as close to the Tuesdays because that's what the residents are used to.
Right.
But moving to that one day would not be, that would not be a problem.
Madam Mayor, we'd have to look at the calendar. I think the Planning Commission meets.
Usually, Planning Commission and EDA on Wednesday, but
Wednesday,
they don't have regular meetings, I don't think. I don't think it's been monthly,
Okay.
because sometimes we do cancel them.
Well, the planning commission is usually the 3rd Wednesday.
3rd, that would be the 20th. Okay.
So yeah, we could do the 13th for that, if you would like to move it.
So are we saying have a meeting the 12th and the 13th?
No,
No, moving the
wasn't-
12th to the 13th.
because the 11th is a holiday.
Oh,
So everything would be just one meeting on the 13th.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking.
I agree
Yeah.
with that.
Okay.
me too.
I mean, that time of year, there should be anything shocking.
Yeah, he said gleefully. Okay, so we removed the 6th. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
For safety.
And we
And the
move,
12th.
we move the 12th to the 13th. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
But when you look in February, we have another meeting where it's right after President's Day.
Yeah. Yipper, yipper.
I don't know who goes out of town for President's Day, but I guess.
Shall we move that one to the 19th?
well, that's
I-
the 3rd Wednesday, so that would be planning commission.
Okay, okay.
Or move it to the 25th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Move it to the 25th?
Is it,
Yeah.
Yeah,
move it
It's
to
a
the one?
25th.
20th,
It's the following Tuesday.
25th, I see. Yeah, that would work.
Yep.
Okay,
Everybody agreement with that? Everybody comfy? Okay.
So I think I was tracking 3 changes. We moved 11-6, moved 11-12 to 11-13, moved 218 to 225. Is that correct?
And so can we make a decision on December 3rd?
Yeah.
And are we eliminating December 3rd?
I'm hoping.
I support eliminating.
Well, then we're gonna have one meeting in November, one meeting in December. I mean, it's.
Right.
Yes.
Right, well, because
They're usually
December,
light.
Too much in
right,
December.
because December 3rd comes right off the heels of Thanksgiving.
Yes, it does. I'm concerned about that.
Yeah. In the month of December, we shouldn't have a heck of a whole lot going on.
So we don't
And
need a
if
public,
something-
we
if
don't need a public
something-
hearing for the
Yeah.
amendment?
So is everyone comfortable with canceling the 3rd of
Yes.
December?
It's just a meeting.
We need a public
Yeah,
hearing?
Depending on the
budget.
amount of the budget amendment, we do.
So that's fair to the public. If we have public hearing, we normally have the vote next meeting. So we can't have it the same day.
Okay.
Yeah, we can. We did it not too long ago.
We've done it several times.
Yeah.
All right, whatever the majority wants.
Okay.
We also change it to the 17th.
I'm sorry, say that
That's too
again?
close to the holidays.
Oh.
Maybe a straw vote on who wants to eliminate the 3rd.
Can you say that louder? I'm sorry.
Maybe a straw vote on who wants to eliminate the 3rd.
Okay.
Let's start with
Okay.
Yessie.
Who would like to eliminate the 3rd completely? And it is workable from your point of view, Tony? Is it workable?
Yeah, we'd just be presenting the budget amendment and you're approving and having a
That-
public
yeah.
hearing on the same night?
Yeah.
Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, yeah. We don't make a habit of it, but if it's a necessity, we'll do that. Yeah, okay.
And what if there's changes, then what? We can't, can we do a change that day?
This
Or you-
amendment
you
is
can
ARPA
choose
primarily.
to hold off on approving the first meeting in January. We've done that before as well.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. The 7th of January, okay.
And I think this amendment is primarily ARPA, right, focus?
We don't know yet.
Okay. So who's okay with eliminating December 3rd? Hasim?
No,
No?
that's
Okay,
fine.
so are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay
Yeah,
with
I'm okay. You're okay. Okay, definitely.
And we have
Yeah.
Yessi.
Eliminate the 3rd.
You have to check with Yessi.
Oh, Yessi, Councilmember Amaya, are you okay with that?
Yes,
Yeah, are you okay with all the changes so far?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anything else that could present a problem?
I was just wondering if we could get a clean version. Could
Yeah,
you
yeah,
email
so
us a clean version?
so there are 4 changes. I'll clean it up, I'll send it out again, because this is going to go on the agenda for you to vote on the 3rd week in
Okay,
July.
okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to 11E, PRTC subsidy resolution.
No additional comment except it's the annual appropriation for
Yeah.
PRTC.
This is another housekeeping task. If there's no comments or questions on this, we will go forward. Staff recommended motion is that the governing body approve and adopt a resolution authorizing the Potomac and Rappahannock Transportation Commission to appropriate $935,602 from the city's motor fuel tax fund to fund PRTC administration and operations as presented.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 11F, EMS medication transition. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the governing body. Tonight, what the fire department has for you is a request for some funding. Talking with Mr. Nguyen, we think we can probably pull it from ARPA. It's due to compliance with the new pending regulation from the FDA and the DEA on the way we receive and store medications that their ambulance carries. So the goal is to provide you with a lot of intel tonight. I have 2 gentlemen with me tonight, my Deputy Chief Adam Jones and Captain Aaron Shett. These gentlemen will run you through the slideshow. If you have any questions, they'll be glad to answer them.
Okay. Thank you.
I believe it's Deputy Chief Adam Jones' birthday, by the way.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Adam.
40.
I'm trying to forget it.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Can you
perfect.
speak directly into the
Sure
microphone?
can. Thank you. So I'm going to give you a PowerPoint presentation on the EMS medication transition, basically the history, where we're going and why, and a few other items along with that. So just to give you a little bit of a history, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, emergency medical services have historically relied on hospitals and hospital pharmacies to support their operations by providing various medication and supplies through either one-for-one exchange, med kit exchange, or box exchanges. Manassas Park has benefited from that for several decades with Prince William Hospital, Fairfax Hospital, and Fair Oaks Hospital. Where we're going, due to some federal regulatory changes, the existing Virginia EMS hospital drug exchange program is going to end on November 27th of this year. No fault of any agency or entity, it's just the DEA created a policy back in 2017 that aimed at having a better way to regulate EMS medications, although they didn't choose to enforce it at that time. Moving forward after the November 27th date, they'll begin to enforce the regulations by the Food and Drug Administration. The Northern Virginia region and Virginia as a whole has learned of this about 2.5 months ago in the month of March. Just to give you a little history, the state of Virginia is one of 2 states currently that do not supply their own medication. So when this information came out in March, our regional partners, so the Virginia Office of EMS, along with the regional councils, all got together with various other groups and started a work group that met on a monthly basis to kind of explore and share different solutions to attack this coming federal regulation change. So they're working through software, hardware, security options, and trying to find the most cost-effective way to conduct this new business and meet all the guidelines moving forward. So what it means for us. So with the federal regulatory changes coming, there's a few systems that need to be in place within our department. So we need secure machine-based management for consumables and returnable items, so our medications. We need a system to ensure that the people access that medication, have the proper credentials, primarily the controlled substances that are going to be housed in it. And we also need the software locks and cameras, which is what's going to help us maintain the access points for that. We're also going to need a DEA registration and a controlled substance registration from the Board of Pharmacy. Following having those systems in place, we'll have a site inspection by the Board of Pharmacy. And after that point and approval from them, we can begin purchasing our medications, so Schedule 2 through Schedule 6 medications. Just to give you a little rundown of the schedule, so basically all medications are broken down by schedule, so Schedule 2 through Schedule 6. Your Schedule 2s and 3s are primarily your drugs that, if taken, can be a used or created dependency. And I'm going to get into a list of what we carry, just so you guys can see that. So on this slide, you have approximately 43 medications. The number to the left of each medication is the quantity of each that we carry. The medication to the far right, highlighted in red, are our controlled substances, are the ones that are more potentially abused, that are under more scrutiny from the FDA and DEA. So in order to begin this process and outfit and supply the medications for our use, it's going to take an initial startup cost of about $13,000 for medication only. That medication will outfit our first out medic unit, our first out engine, and then have a backup medication box. And that $13,000 will also allow us to have a little bit of inventory to replenish stock after each emergency call where they administer a medication. Along with the licensing through the DEA and the Board of Pharmacy, there's also a controlled substance ordering system that is put on by the DEA. It's a program that's electronic to allow for more ordering freedom, faster transactions, more accurate orders. It's a free enrollment certificate for the purchasing agency that does it. If we didn't elect to go with the Seesaw system, it's a paper form. It's a DEA Form 222 that's filled out. It's sent to Jacksonville, Florida. If that form were to be filled out incorrectly, they send it back. Don't tell you what's wrong. You have to find your errors, fix it, resend it back, which only creates a delay in obtaining our medications. So for us, this is a free enrollment through the DEA. Just wanted you guys to be aware of that. Breakdown of the cost. Virginia Controlled Substance Registration Form is going to cost us roughly $120. And then our DEA license through the DEA is going to cost $800, both which are required for us to move forward. The recommendation we're bringing forward for our medication storage is going to be a controlled access pharmaceutical dispenser. It's going to be purchased through Boundtree, but it's manufactured by a company called UCapit. They offer a vending machine style that you can house your medication in, control the access point of who can acquire which medication based on their certification levels. It also comes with a recommendation for a smart locker, which is also controlled access based on certification levels for what's in those. So we can keep excess medication to replenish the actual dispensing machine. And then the IQ technology software where we can track the lot numbers, data from each medication, quantities, run reports, see who's accessed the medication, see who's accessed it that shouldn't have, and so on. And then the Prox card, which allows us to have two-factor authentication to access the meds. So a 4-digit code plus a Prox card to even get to the meds. Then the recommendation is to use Knox Company for our room security, and this is primarily just refitting our door with the proper locks and hardware to make it as secure as we possibly can. And the list in front of you is just a breakdown of the cost of each one of those items to make that happen. A camera system, recommending going with a camera system, one camera that's going to look directly at the door, one camera that will be inside the room we recommend to house the hardware in, that will look at the provider going in just to have access both ways to see who's in there and who's not. And that comes at a cost of $300 for 2 cameras. So basically our all-in startup cost is estimated to be about $40,000. So that's equipment, security, licensing, and medication. Below that, I have a reoccurring annual cost. So medication, we're estimating to be about $11,000, which will be captured in our EMS billing, and then reoccurring software licensing fees of $1,200 and security cloud services of $1,300. So annual cost after the initial $40,000 startup should be roughly $13,500 pending any changes in the market. Any questions?
Comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
So does the individuals, is there special training for the individuals that will have to go in and retrieve the medicine from the locked room?
So when the system is put in place in stock, we will cover the crews on how to access it with a unique 4-digit code specific to them. There are card readers that they carry around to access buildings now will work as the Prox card. So basically, we'll teach them show them what they can access and what they can't based on their certification level. The machine essentially is like a vending machine for snacks.
Okay.
It's just going to vend medication.
But I'm thinking, do they have to take now, since they're in essence going to be like a pharmacist, a very, very light level pharmacist, take extra type of training? Or is that already covered in what you do?
It's basically already covered. Most of our folks have access to the meds. The company that offers the software and the hardware will take all of our inventory, input it, and they will provide the training for us. And then we'll have 1 to 2, likely Chief Jones and possibly myself, that will have the access points to control who can access what and do the additional training that may be needed.
Okay, thank you. Because I just was trying to figure out, did they need extra training since you're going to basically be a pharmacist, but you answered it, so thank you.
Yep.
Questions? Councilmember Amaya, do you have any comments or questions?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
One question on the the storage and the vendor that's going to shoot out the medications, is that a sole source contract, or are we bidding that contract?
So what I did was looked at the options that were available, and based on most of the other options that are out there are more geared towards larger departments or hospitals. The UCAPA system is better fitted for our current resource space for this, so it's more meeting of our needs currently. I'm still looking at cost of other ones, although I don't believe they're going to fit our footprint. This is geared more towards a smaller department.
Hey, Daryl, if I can chime in real quick, we would use small procurement procedures for this. It sounds like it's within the small procurement procedures maximum. So I don't think this would be a sole source. And what I just heard was it's not. He actually is soliciting other vendors to provide. So we should have a competitive, or as competitive as we could possibly get at the small level.
Also, I do believe we have the UCAPIT, and the product that we're purchasing is through Boundtree, which I believe we already have a contract through with Boundtree.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean.
Well, we'd have to look and see if we'd have to look and see if we were able to purchase on that, though. Just because we have a contract already doesn't mean we can go ahead and add to that contract. So Daryl's concern is that we make sure we have transparency and that we're competitive as much as possible, and that will occur. I can assure you of that.
Thank you.
Any other? Yes,
No.
ma'am.
I have a question. Is the cost of the medication usually passed on to the patient's insurance?
Yeah, so current practice is we obtain medications from the pharmacy, primarily Prince William Hospital. When that medication is used for any patient encounter and they're transported to that hospital, that medication is then exchanged and the hospital bills for that medication. Moving forward, since we'll have to purchase our own meds based on the federal changes coming, we're going to have to change how we do billing so we can start recovering that money, which is where at the end I tied in the annual medication costs will tie into the EMS billing.
Okay, and that goes to the patient's insurance if they have insurance?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, go ahead.
So, I mean, this whole regulation came because there was no oversight with the hospitals? I mean, they're the ones supplying the EMS agencies.
Currently,
right?
yes.
Currently.
So this has been in practice for some time throughout the United States. There's only 2 states that haven't been doing it, but the federal regulations are changing where they're going to start enforcing it this year. I've sit on a lot of meetings over the last 2.5 months with hospital reps, pharmacy reps, where they just don't have the manpower to continue to meet the requirement of tracking of medication moving forward as they transition those out to the EMS providers, because they service a lot of agencies. The medications tracking is going to be down to the lot number of each medication, down to the patient it was administered to. They don't have the resources, nor they collaboratively came together and decided they were cutting ties November 27th.
Well, I would think it would be hard for the agents, the EMS to track as well. I mean,
It will be a difficult transition for us being new, but
Yeah.
the IQ technology software allows you to track your dosing, your volume of medication, your lot numbers,
Yeah.
and we can then, based on patient care report numbers, tie that back to that specific medication, so we have a better tracking of it.
okay. Since it's regulated by the FDA, DEA, say we get the license, what would be an example of losing that license? Like, what are they looking for in handling, ordering, reordering the medication? What processes?
So the handling of meds doesn't necessarily change in how we handle the meds currently. It's just now we're going to have sole ownership of the pharmacy licensing and the DE license to do so. Where it gets, correct me if I'm not answering your question correctly, where we could get in trouble, it really doesn't change from how we could currently, and that's if a Schedule 2 or 3 narcotic came up missing that we couldn't account for. Meaning somebody lost it on a call,
Right.
or not that I think we'd ever have the problem, but somebody pocket one.
Right.
then that has to be reported out to the DEA and FDA.
And then they take recourse.
And then they come in and do a very thorough investigation and inspection into records and access points, yes.
Okay. And then what if we don't get the license? We can't carry, you guys can't carry those medications?
Yeah, so if we did not, and we're not able to obtain the license through the Board of Pharmacy or the DEA,
Right.
we would not be able to carry the medications, which then in turn would affect our ability to provide the care to the residents.
Right. Okay, I think that's all the questions I have. Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Done. Any final comments? Okay, the staff recommended motion, thank you very much, that was very informative. Staff recommended motion is that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign the necessary contractual documents for the purchase of equipment and software from various vendors to comply with the new federal mandates requiring the Department of Fire and Rescue to implement its own restocking process to ensure a supply of medications needed to treat patients in a pre-hospital environment, which will include the purchase of equipment, security devices, licensing requirements, medications, and security upgrades at a cost not to exceed $37,000 as presented and subject to final city attorney review. Do we have a motion?
Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on to 11G. 11G is adoption of erosion and stormwater management ordinance of the city of Manassas Park. Welcome, Calvin.
Good evening, Mayor Rischel, Vice Mayor Mensing, members of council, residents, staff, and guests. I'm Calvin Odell, the Director of Community Development. Before you tonight is the adoption of a combined erosions and sediment control and stormwater ordinance. Shortly after the 2014 mandate that we adopt a stormwater ordinance and become the Virginia Stormwater Management Program Authority for reviewing and issuing permits for stormwater control, it was whispered that the two programs had become so similar and were so intertwined that there was shortly going to be a forced adoption of a combined ordinance, and that the state was going to combine their ordinance, and it took 10 years. So this has been a long time coming. I'm surprised it took this long. There are no surprises here. There was no point in having erosion and sediment control in one section of the state code, stormwater in the other. The two have been so intermingled with not only the training methodologies and the way that they work together in conjunction to provide one end product, which is cleaner water runoff from construction sites, but down to just the fact that we actually reference erosion and sediment control standard requirements in our stormwater ordinance. We knew this was coming. There's no surprises here. I will tell you that the ordinance that was in the package is the model ordinance from the state, the ordinance that was in the packet. We did have to modify that because we formerly had what was called Division 9 and Division 10 of Article 3. Article 3 was our stormwater ordinance in Chapter 8. Division 9 was essentially set up our utility fund and allowed us to actually create a stormwater fee, a utility fee. And Division 10 was our illicit discharge ordinance that Shayna Schaefer brought before the council many, many years ago to allow us to effectively deal with illicit discharges. Those have been added in. Dean has added those in, and you should have had access to that in the online packet,
Yes.
but it wasn't in the original agenda item. So we are including those former as additional articles now. It's been a slight rearrangement in the layout, but we are not losing our stormwater fee. We are not losing our illicit discharge enforcement ability. I think we will probably be back to talk about this in the future because it looks like the state, where they once upon a time left multiple enforcement mechanisms in place, they've now pushed everything to sort of be civil violations that have to go before the court We don't have the authority. We have to go before the court to have them issue these civil fines. It's a very cumbersome process that code enforcement's been through, and, you know, watching them struggle through that, I'm not sure it's the most efficient way to handle issues on a construction site. So we're kind of just waiting to see how it works out, but we may be back to recommend a stop work order procedure be added to the penalty section here, or see if we can do something that's more streamlined and efficient for the guys in the field to actually coerce enforcement. But this is very simple. We knew it was coming for a long time, combining ENS and stormwater into one ordinance. We have pretty much followed the state's model recommendation to the letter, just changed the names to protect the innocent and things like that. But were there any questions specifically about the ordinance?
Okay. So to clarify, we will be voting on the ordinance that was uploaded onto the website?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions? Comments or questions? No? Okay, the staff recommended motion is that the governing body approve and adopt an ordinance to replace Chapter 8 of the City Code and a new Chapter 8 that consolidates erosion control and stormwater management to comply with new regulations adopted by the State Water Control Board as presented.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, Calvin.
Thank you. Thank
Much appreciated. Okay, moving on to 10H. Councilmember Carrera is proposing an increase to the governing body salaries.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. So what I'm doing, what was done about 8 years ago is we took a temporary budget reduction in our salaries to assist with the high debt and the budget issues we had at that time. So during that time, council salaries have increased under Code 15.2-1414.6. So what I'm asking for is a vote to, in FY20 or FY26, effective July 1st, 2026, I'm sorry, July 1st, 2025, to match all other 37 cities in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that the council here be compensated under State Code 15.2-1414.6.
So you're asking for an additional adjustment. So there's the one adjustment which retroactively takes it back to what the salary used to be.
Correct.
But you're asking for an increase.
Yes. I'm asking to match what was done, to match that state code, to match what the other 37 cities do around the Commonwealth.
Okay, so state code is,
15.2-1414.
well, state code says 21,000 for council members and 22,000 for mayor.
Yeah.
The total financial impact as of July 1st, 2025 would be $148,000.
Correct.
Okay, and that would be two adjustments in 1 year.
What I would say is that when you have the city of Martinsville, the city of Danville, where the cost of living is a third less than here, and they're making the same amount of money, that's not fairness. Every other jurisdiction in Northern Virginia, in the DC area, have raised their salary, sometimes 2 or 3 times in the last 8 years. Now, you and I pushed to get that temporary reduction.
Yes, we did.
But we have to have fairness with council salary. We have one candidate for mayor this year. We have 3 seats for council, and we have 4 candidates. We have to encourage people to run for office here. And this is an incentive to do that.
But two adjustments in 1 year seems a little excessive. I mean, I'm just expressing what I think the residents are going to say, the questions that they will have. And I don't care what other jurisdictions do. They do what they feel is right for them.
Well, we have that fairness. I think everybody should be compensated fair.
Yeah.
Councilmember Kirk, just a clarification.
Yeah.
The increase that we're in restoring back to the full amount is happening as of July 1st, 2024. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
And then this one
the
that
full
you're
amount
talking
that was
about as far
effective
as...
years ago.
Years ago.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so the legislature in Richmond allowed us to go up even higher.
Right.
And if we adopt that tonight, as I understand it, that won't occur until July 1st of 2025.
Correct.
So that's a year away. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's not in the same year. It's not doing 2 increases in the same year. If we get this one in July and then the next one next July, it's the second year.
It is in 1 year.
No.
July
count,
1,
like
12
months.
24 to July 1, 25. That's a 1 year period.
No, it would start June 30th and then start July 1st for the following year.
Okay, a year and a day.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
but it is not.
But we do that for our employees. We give them a salary increase every
We
year.
give them every year, right, the 3%.
And this was passed by a Democratic legislature and signed by a Republican governor.
The
It
other
was
thing,
passed
when-
unanimously.
when this governing body made that decision to do it, it was during a tough economic times for our city. Since then, we all in this dais like to tout everything that we've done, and the city manager, I mean, our bond rating has increased tremendously. Our reserve funds have increased tremendously. Our reserve account has increased tremendously. And so we're not in the same predicament financially as a city that we were 5 or 6 years ago when you and the mayor adopted the reduction in the council's pay.
And we were
So-
181 million in debt at that time.
Exactly.
And we're down
So
now under
it's-
70.
We're really talking apples and oranges.
Yeah.
And if the legislature in Richmond has allowed cities to adopt this as a guideline, then why wouldn't the representatives in Manassas Park be privy to that? So I just want to thank you, Councilmember Kerr, for bringing this to our attention.
Welcome.
Madam Mayor, can I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
So this year, we made the total line expense is $32,500. Come July 1, it goes up to $65,000. Now, for fiscal '25, we had to freeze, if I'm not mistaken, we had to freeze a position.
We did.
We had to cut some things out of the budget so that we could get the staff their 3% COLA, which is still below inflation. And we raised everything except for real estate on the residents. So now we're saying, we don't even know what this coming fiscal year is going to bring us. So now we're saying that we're going to increase it from, if we looked at from fiscal '24 to fiscal '26, at least 4 times. If my math is correct, 32,000,
No, actually, I think it's 5.5 times.
5.5 times?
Yeah.
Math is not my strong point. I personally, where I understand we are in a better situation, but we're not. If we were in a better situation, we wouldn't have had to freeze a position. We wouldn't have had to go cut our budgets. I can't go to bed at night with that much of an increase. I understand the state gave us that latitude, but just because they gave us that latitude doesn't mean that we should increase our salary that much. Not only that, that's it. 148,000 is a very high level FTE.
148.
Yeah, if I figured it out. 126,000 for the 6 council members and the 22,000 for the mayor.
Yes.
That's 148,000.
Yes, it is.
That's one FTE.
Yeah.
We've got a growing city.
Yeah.
We're going to have more housing here.
Yeah.
You know, y'all got to look around here. We're going to have more housing, which means we're going to need some sort of support somewhere. We've got ARPA, sunsetting, I believe at the end of next fiscal year.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't see the economy. I still see things increasing.
Yep, there's too much uncertainty in the
Right.
economy.
And this
Yeah.
is not a full-time job. I can't, we all have either our full-time jobs, or if we're retired, we have, the income coming in from the retirement. I can't justify the 4+ times increase in our salary.
Yeah.
I just can't. I can't go to sleep at night doing that. Not when I've got neighbors up the street that are in their 80s that are living on really tight budgets. I know that my salary, my everyday salary is not going to go up as quickly as what we're going to be seeing here come July 1. So I can't do this on the residents' back or the employees' backs.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you. And another consideration is that Manassas Park has the highest tax rate in Virginia. At some point in time, when Manassas Park no longer has the highest tax rate, then and only then, I think, is it appropriate to bring this forward. But I don't believe that the time is now. The city still needs too much. The taxes are still too high. I'm not comfortable with doing this.
May I say one thing? You can't go to sleep at night. You don't have to take the salary. You can tell the city manager, you don't want to take the salary, then you can go to sleep better. But
That's
this
not
is.
May I say
but
something?
but let me speak.
Well, first of all,
Let me speak.
well, go ahead and speak, and then I'm going to rebut that remark.
You can rebut everything you want. The thing is, this is why it's done in the state, because they've looked at it. This is why the governor signed it, a Democrat legislature passed it unanimously, because it looks around the entire thing. You just stated in your comment, things are getting more expensive. Yes, they are. It's what they paid 15 years ago, they don't pay today, but we were still stuck at the same salary. So if you don't want the salary, you don't take it.
So when so if you remember, from the very beginning, we've talked, and before you came on board, we talked about increasing the salaries, and each and every time I've said no, for the reasons that I've just placed out here. Now, regarding the increase, when we talked about, and I said no to us doubling our salary, I told the folks that I would take the difference of what I get paid now in fiscal '25, the difference between then and now, and whatever that difference is, it's going to the Bell Foundation, so it goes back into the city.
That's still taking the salary.
Yeah, and I still have to pay
But
taxes
that's
on
your
it, but it
choice,
goes.
but that's your choice.
So let me finish.
That's your choice.
But at the end of the day, like the mayor said, just because the state says that we can increase it that much, doesn't mean that we automatically have to. We still have some situations here that are different than Martinsville. We take a look at Martinsville. They are doing they're actually doing quite well because they have a casino in there that's kind of helped increase their economy. And I actually spoke to them last summer.
It's interesting you say that. I met with the board of supervisors and the city manager there, and I met with the sheriff there. I met with and Henry County and the sheriff there. Housing there, the population has declined. It's declined 20% just since 2020. And look at the census number, it's declined another 10% since 2010. That entire southwest area is declining. Go down there, visit it, don't call them, go down there. There's blight everywhere around there. Housing is a third here. That's what it is. We have a thriving economy here. We're at 2% unemployment rate here. They're not that down there.
But what I'm saying
But again,
now,
if you don't want the salary, don't take it.
But what
That's
I'm
it
saying
comes
is
down to.
this is not our full-time job. By increasing that much, we are actually
The Assembly
decreasing.
understands that when they dictated this law for the cities to adopt it. 37 cities, we're the only one that doesn't take the full salary.
Councilmember Carrera, could you please allow her to finish
I did allow her to
her
finish.
point
You did
before you
finish.
start speaking?
I did allow her to finish. Go ahead.
So what I'm saying is that this is the equivalent of an FTE. If we did, I wouldn't have any, like the mayor said, if we were in a different circumstance, if we didn't have to sit there and freeze a position for fiscal '25, I'd be all for this. If we didn't have to increase everything but the real estate tax on the residents, I'd be all for it. But the reality is, when we start to have to increase things on residents' back, we don't
Yes.
deserve a 4-time increase. Granted, the state allowed that limit, but we are not at the point nor that we should be doing that. But that's just my humble opinion sitting down here.
Yeah, and that is also my opinion.
Okay.
Do any other comments? Okay, so I believe what you're going to ask for is a public hearing next
Yes.
Tuesday?
Next Tuesday, we have a vote on it.
Okay.
Do we have a meeting next Tuesday?
We're having a meeting on this.
So initially, you
we
all
didn't
had given
cancel,
me
did we?
consensus to not have a meeting next Tuesday, but pending the consensus on this one, we'll have, I guess, a meeting.
The city attorney's
It
recommendation.
would be a special meeting.
Yeah.
I'm happy to have a public hearing about it next Tuesday.
Yeah, I think we need a public hearing. I think the public needs the opportunity to speak and weigh in on this topic. I just hope that the word can get out so that they are aware of this, because a lot of times the public does not become aware of something until too late. So.
Do we even have a majority for a public hearing?
I'm sorry?
So do we even have a majority for a public hearing?
Well,
I don't-
that was next. I was going to
Oh.
ask for consensus. Do we want the public hearing on Tuesday?
I mean, I'm on the same boat. I mean, that's why I voted no for the budget.
Yeah, I know. I voted no for the.
Well, yeah,
for the
that's what I'm saying, for the
retro,
raise, yeah,
For the
exactly.
retro, but it's in the
I'm
budget
not in
anyway.
favor
so.
for that
I have a
anyway.
question. Why do we have to have a special hearing? Why can't we include it in the regular?
Because this has to be passed by July.
Yeah, Dean,
So it'd
do
be in
you want
effect
to give
next
some
year.
explanation on that? Why the public hearing on Tuesday and sort of the scheduling?
Sure. So the General Assembly, when they changed the law, they also put in a requirement for a public hearing. Now, the code sections they cited only require a public hearing for counties, and they have to give 14 days notice. We don't have that same requirement. However, we do have to do this by ordinance, and we do have public hearings for ordinance, even if it's just for a city code change. So this would not be incorporated in the city code, but it would be by ordinance. So the recommendation is to have a public hearing so the public can chime in on it, especially since the agenda for tonight that included this item wasn't uploaded until early this morning. So it seems a little bit like they don't, like you wouldn't want public comment if you just went ahead and did it without a public hearing.
I have a question for Dean.
Yeah, it would be entirely too sketchy to vote tonight.
Jeanette?
I had a question for Dean.
Yeah.
Dean, so if we have the public hearing next Tuesday, would we be able to vote yea or nay on the proposal? If it has to be adopted by July
Yes, it has to
1st?
be
Yeah.
It has to be adopted by July 5th, I believe it is. It just has to be four months prior to the next general election. And that's kind of where a lot of these timing issues come in. So you could conceivably do the public hearing next Tuesday and then wait for a week to vote on it. But then you'd be setting yourself up for an early July vote.
Yeah, we have a meeting on
Yeah.
July,
Yeah.
I think we have a meeting on July 2nd.
Let me ask,
We do.
Public hearing then?
We have a meeting on, don't we?
The first meeting in the fiscal year is the third Tuesday.
Is when?
The third Tuesday.
Yeah.
So
It's
July
too late.
16th.
Oh,
Yeah,
understood.
there's only one
Something
meeting in
wrong there.
July.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So we have to do it
Do it
next Tuesday. We have to do both.
Yes,
yeah.
thank you for that clarification.
let me ask you a question, though. I mean, we just approved the raise in this budget, but I guess if Carrera wanted further increase it more next year, then we have to wait additional year to be effective?
We'd have to wait till 26, and it'd be
Even
effective
longer
in
than
27.
FY '27?
Yes.
Or
And you-
calendar 26?
And you and I are running in 26, and, we're going to have a write-in situation possibly and all that, so.
Yeah, all right. I'm just wondering what it is, but, yeah, I mean, that's fine, we can do a public hearing.
I'd like to make a clarification. Mayor, could I make a clarification?
Yes.
So what you guys have done in the budget is not give yourself raises. You're just agreeing to no longer forfeit half your salaries. I know that
That's
those
important.
terms get used a lot, but it is important to understand that you're not giving yourself a raise. You're just not forfeiting half your salary like you had been doing by approval of the budget. So there's never been a formal decision to decrease or increase other than by budget. So that's different than what Mr. Carrera is talking about. He's talking about an actual raise that would be done pursuant to state code.
So we did a restoration for fiscal '25, and we're talking about a pay raise for fiscal '26.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
Okay.
And the
And
restoration,
restoration is just really, you're just not forfeiting money is what it is. It's not even really a restoration, it's just no longer forfeiting half your salary to go to the general fund.
And can I just clarify that the salary that we are no longer forfeiting brings us up to what? Is it 9,000 a
9,500.
year? 9,500 a
I
year?
think it's
A
9,500.
total of
It's
65,000.
twice what we're getting right now.
Right. I just want to, when you say salary, it makes it sound like it's actual
It's,
salary.
It's
We get taxed on
9,800
it,
and
so it's
9,200.
considered a salary.
Well,
Salary/stipend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you just clarified, 9,200,
Gas money.
That's 9,200, right.
yeah.
So let's try to get a consensus. Who is willing to have the public hearing on Tuesday? Next Tuesday? Okay, I do. Okay. Okay.
I don't see a need for it.
Okay, we'll be, Dean, it was, Yessie, I'm sorry, I forgot about you remotely. Do you have any comments or questions? Councilmember Amaya?
Is she on mute?
Okay. Well, I guess we will have a public hearing next Tuesday. Okay?
You will, that's a affirmative, is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay, I will then prepare an ordinance that you guys can have before you to vote on in either yea or nay, okay?
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you, Dean.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on to second public comment time. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment? No? Okay. City managers report.
Good evening. So before I turn it over to the departmental Q3 questions from you all, I just want to make a quick comment for residents. So street crews have noticed several pavement markings that were installed on various streets, specifically Alpine, Travis, and Meeker, intended to mark parking spaces. Unfortunately, those those are a violation of the manual on uniform traffic control devices. And we believe that the materials being used are temporary and it could wash into our stormwater system. Additionally, we're not really sure that they were done correctly from a safety perspective, which could bring legal liability to the city. So staff intends to go out to first educate the public by pushing messaging, and then go out and remove those before it actually caused an accident. And Calvin, you can speak more to kind of what we saw out there. But I just want to remind residents, if you have a street request, please contact us, whether it's through our admin team or go on the website and use the work order request portal. Street work is intensive in design and engineering. It's not something that we just go out and do. And so please, if you have a request, send it up the proper channel.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Calvin?
Yeah, so I can speak a little bit on this. There was some history that I was able to track down. There were some residents near the intersection where this, was noticed, that were complaining about people parking in the radius of the intersection and complaining that people were disregarding the no parking signs. And there had been a request that we go back out and refresh yellow paint, but as council is aware, every year we have an ongoing CIP project to do away with yellow painting because it's really operationally, at this point, it's almost, so we have to go out and post temporary signs for street sweeping. And that's exactly the same process we would have to go through to paint curb, because there's just too many vehicles parked on the street all times of day now, and we can't risk after spray on the vehicles, or we'll have insurance claim after insurance claim after insurance claim. We really don't want to take on something else that requires us to go street to street posting temporary no parking signs. It's a pretty big expense and a very large staff time expense to do the street sweeping program. So we had made the policy decision a while back. Officers were saying the yellow paint wasn't holding up in court, the tickets weren't being enforced. The signs are the preferred method by the MUTCD. You can paint yellow curb, and we still have an ordinance in our books that says yellow curb is an effective parking prohibition. But it wasn't holding up in court, so we switched to signs. We feel that we can put in a sign without moving any vehicles, we can maintain signs without moving any vehicles, and they last longer than paint in general. But apparently a resident was very upset that we did not go out and freshen up yellow curb. I did send the crew out there to make sure that parking prohibition signs were in place as they needed to be and that it was enforceable. They seem to have taken it upon themselves to put out, there are temporary markers that are reflective markers that get used immediately after you resurface a roadway until the striping crew can come out and get stripes down. This helps to take a 30, 40 to 80 feet wide piece of blacktop and give some delineation to it to avoid accidents just until the striping crew gets out there. They're very temporary. We often put them down ourselves for the paving crew. We'll go out there and put them down just to have something in place for the residents to go by until the striping crew gets there. These are not permanent installations. But the question has to be asked, what's wrong with this? Well, I will start by saying every standard that I'm referencing here in this conversation is all available online without any special logins, without any purchasing of anything. You can just go online and find this information. But the Code of Virginia specifically says in 46.2831 that unofficial traffic control devices are prohibited and there are penalties. No unauthorized person shall erect or maintain on any highway any warning or direction sign, signal, or light in imitation of any official traffic control device erected as provided by law. And the penalty, any violation of this section shall constitute a Class 4 misdemeanor. So it is prohibited under state code for anybody to go out and put out their own traffic control devices. The code of the city of Manassas Park is not quite as specific about it, but in section 23, we do say obstructions, etc. in general, and we say no person shall construct or place any obstruction, structure, foreign matter, or material be it permanent or temporary, enter upon the streets, gutters, sidewalks in the city. And then just to show that there is spirit for this type of enforcement, this type of legislation in the code, in the zoning code, we have another ordinance that says any sign that is a copy or imitation of or which for any reason is likely to be confused with any traffic control sign or signal used as displayed by public authority, those types of signs are prohibited. So there is several code sections. There's 2 code sections specifically that reference this type of behavior in our city code, but the state code clearly prohibits it. There is allowance in the state code, of course, for Department of Transportation, counties and towns to go out and put out traffic markings. But that's because it's implied that we're going to follow the rules. So it was a little bit illegal, to do what they did. But does that make it wrong? And I heard Keith mention it might not have been exactly right. Well, we have to look at the existing condition out there. And we've talked about this a little bit when the request was made during the parking conversations. Can we strike parking lanes? Can we make parking spaces on the sides of these roads? Well, the problem is that a lot of these roads are very narrow roads. They don't have room to put parking spaces and then have fully legal travel lanes. We'll talk about that. This particular street only has 25 feet of actual pavement. Now, curb to curb, it's 29 feet. And I want you guys to remember that 29 feet because it's pretty important. The industry standard that most people would use if we were designing like a new shopping area or a subdivision, we probably use 8 feet for parallel parking, and that would be for like a compact car. But VDOT does allow a 7-foot parking lane width because they have a separate set of guidelines that are called subdivision guidelines. Now, why is that separate from the VDOT road and bridge standards? It's not really. It's referenced in there. It's incorporated. But it is not something that VDOT would ever be involved with, right? Why would VDOT be involved in a subdivision? Most subdivisions are privately maintained, but they do put guidance out there. So VDOT does allow for 7-foot parking lane width, and then VDOT has a varying standard for lane widths that goes from 10 to 12 feet per travel lane width. So it doesn't take, anybody that's pretty good at math, 7 feet parking lane on one side, 2 10-foot travel lanes, which would be the minimum, and then another 7-foot travel lane, you got 34 feet. We only have 29 feet out there. So we can't legally, by any standard, mark 2 parking lanes and 2 travelways. So we don't mark them.
Yeah.
Now, that everybody say, well, we need an additional 5 feet to do that. I know how do we get there? How did this happen? Well, nothing really happened. By the VDOT road and bridge standards in their subdivision guidelines, on a roadway where the speed limit is 25 miles an hour or less, and you have less than 2,000 daily trips, or between 2,000 and, less than 2,000 daily trips, you can have a roadway section that's only 29 feet wide. The exact width of the street that we're talking about. So actually, by today's standard, you could still build that street. There'd be nothing wrong with it. It would meet your reference standards, the standards referenced in our public facilities manual. It's just that there's not a huge risk involved at those low speeds, right? There's low speeds, not a lot of vehicles per day. It's assumed you're not going to have a lot of times where 2 vehicles are actually crossing paths at the exact same time. And if that does happen, there is room for 4 vehicles in 29 feet. They just have to be going really slow and being really careful. So where does VDOT get this? Well, they don't make it up. They don't just say, well, let's put some lenient standard in there for everybody to follow. Almost that entire section comes from the AASHTO standards. And the AASHTO is your American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, a large group of people that get together and put together traffic regulations. They have what's called the Green Book, and that's where most of these VDOT standards come from. It's not even a state thing, it's an international organization or American organization. So nothing happened. No one got away with anything in 1957 through 62 when this subdivision was being designed. It was originally designed as a private subdivision. It was an HOA. I don't know how many people know that, but the original town of Manassas Park was originally an HOA. So this was always intended to be a private subdivision. So nothing happened, no one got away with anything. You're allowed to have a 29-foot road, but you have to be careful in going out and striping and making travel ways versus parking lanes, because then you're implying some things. So what do we know, about the existing conditions out there beyond just lane width? Well, a lot of the standards that would affect this type of behavior and how you would stripe and mark something like this are based on vehicle trips per day, VPD. And in Prince William County, if you were designing this subdivision, for each one of those single-family detached homes, you'd have to assume 10.1 vehicle per day trips, right? That's not really high. I think when you consider the mailman and a couple Amazon deliveries a day, maybe 2 or 3 cars, you probably get to 10.1 pretty quick. Now, the ITE, the Institute for Transportation Engineers, they recommend 21.9. So I'm going to assume there's 30 houses on this street we're talking about. I think there's actually only 29, but we're going to go ahead and round up to make the math easier. We're talking about 657 vehicles per day by the highest standard you could really quote. Just keep that in mind because it gets relevant. So we get back to, was there anything really wrong with these DIY pavement markings? Well, the city, I guess a lot of people think we just do whatever we want, but we don't. We definitely follow a standard, and the standard we follow here is Title 23 of the United States Code, Section 655-603. This is federal code. The National MUTCD, and the MUTCD stands for the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and I'd like to accentuate the uniform part. There's a reason you can have a Virginia driver's license and successfully drive from Virginia to California and back, and you actually were able to do it without wrecking your car into other cars, because we all follow the same rules. We all follow the MUTCD. It's a uniform manual of traffic control devices, so although there might be slight differences in color and size and shape of different, manufacturers' devices, the standards for the size of the globes, the size of the signs, the color of the reflective paint, and all that stuff, it's uniform across the country. What the MUTCD says is that it's the national standard for all traffic control devices installed on any street, highway, or bicycle trail open to public travel. That's in the federal code. For traffic engineers, civil engineers, and transportation departments across the country, this is our mandated standard. The current edition we're in is the 11th edition, adopted in December 2023. We're talking about the installation of markings here. We're not talking about signs, we're not talking about signals, we're talking about traffic or pavement markings. And there is a lot on pavement markings in the MUTCD. What the MUTCD says is that markings are used to supplement other traffic control devices. They're not primary traffic control devices, they're just supplements. I'd just like to point out, we do have no parking signs out there. Yes, we have the right to supplement that with yellow curb, but that's not the primary. The primary is the signs. Markings can take many forms, but markings, curb markings, delineators, those things, they all have to be to a standard. And each standard marking shall be used only to convey the meaning prescribed for that marking in this manual. So you can't mix and match. You can't say, well, this looked good there, so I'm going to use it there. They must be visible at night. And that the comment was made at the last meeting I attended. Councilmember Javed asked the question, could we have reflectivity to the parking lanes? Yes, you can. My recommendation was, if you're going to try to stripe parking lanes, and you want it reflective, you go ahead and you use thermoplast and you put silica in it, and then it's permanently reflective. But they don't have to be reflective if you have streetlights. And we are conducting a light study right now to see if we need to supplement streetlights on the west end of the city. So we're actually actively in that process, conducting that study. And yeah, we may need to add some additional streetlights to make all of our markings visible. But in this case, there just weren't any markings to keep visible, just yellow curb that was faded. And this would be a good time to mention that,
You know, we do have the study going on, and we may need to install supplemental lighting to make things safer and clearer, but it's, that's ongoing. That's not where we're at right now. Chapter 3B gets into what we actually, you know, the meat of the argument here, and that says, if used, edge lines, which this is what we're talking about, we're not delineating parking spaces. Doesn't exist really in the MUTCD. You're delineating the edge of a travelway, the right-hand edge of a travelway. It's called an edge line. And that edge line shall consist of a normal width, solid white line to delineate the right edge of the road, or the right edge of the travelway. So the problem with this is if you were to go out there and look at it, it's a series of little white reflectors. That's not a solid white line. Broken lines have a completely different meaning. And that makes it a violation in the MUTCD. You can't just mix and match whether it's broken or solid. It's very clear. Edge lines have to be solid white. And edge markings, I didn't even know this until I was doing this. Edge markings are used as a visual reference to guide road users during adverse weather conditions and visibility conditions. So they're not really there in any way, shape, or form to delineate a parking area. They're there so that in bad weather and bad visibility, you know where the edge of the travelway is at. So taking it upon yourself to go out there and mark an edge line with intermittent reflectors, it's not the right way to do it. The big thing that I think frustrates everybody, and I know that it frustrates council, I know it frustrates management, is that every time somebody asks for a speed bump, a stop sign, anything, we always say, well, we need an engineering study, a warrant analysis. Well, that's because in the MUTCD, for every type of traffic control device and every standard section, below that standard section that lays out what that device is supposed to be like, there's a warrant section that says what warrants installing these devices. So that's why we call it a warrant analysis. It's not something that engineering firms made up just to make money off jurisdictions. It's something that jurisdictions need to be able to implement the MUTCD. So the warrant analysis or the warrant standards for edge line markings would say that edge line markings shall, and that is obligatory, right? We'd have to do it, placed on streets or highways, whether like freeways, expressways, or rural arterials with a traveled way 20 feet or more in width of 6,000 vehicles per day. 6,000. What was our number? 657. So almost 10 times the amount of vehicles we could expect to see on that road would warrant us putting down edge lines. Now, there's guidance after that, where we get into the shoulds. And yeah, you have to, if there's 6,000 per day, the should says rural arterials and collectors with a traveled way 20 feet or more in width and an average daily trips of 3,000 vehicles per day. Still 4 to 5 times where we're actually at right now. So we really shouldn't, there's not even a should that's telling us we should put down edge lines. But what's important is edge line markings should not be placed where an engineering study or an engineering judgment indicates that providing them is likely to decrease safety for all road users. And here we have a situation where we have a road that's not wide enough for 2 delineated travelways, and we go and we put edge line markings, we're insinuating that you're safe by staying on your side of that white line. And you should be able to go 25 miles an hour, but you probably can't, right? You probably are going to have to slow down or people are going to have a collision. So we shouldn't put down any markings at all. And I think an engineer would agree with that. But edge line markings can be excluded. That's covered in the code. They can be excluded. Now, the only thing you're going to find in the MUTCD about these raised reflective markers, and they're talking about permanent ones, where if you get close to a highway center line, you'll see a chunk of steel buried down inside the pavement with 2 reflectors sticking up in it. Those are permanently installed, what they call raised reflective markings. Now, those should not supplement right-hand edge lines. That's in the MUTCD. Those should not. You should not put those down. So that is another reason we shouldn't do what we've done in our little DIY install. But even if traffic counts and engineering judgment warranted edge lines, which in this case they don't, we would still be creating an issue with bidirectional traffic because of the width of the roadway. There's really no way to place these on these narrower streets without doing one or two things that we really don't want to do. We don't want to turn it into a one-way street and give ourselves more room and inconvenience our residents by changing a traffic pattern or making it harder to get around in their neighborhood. We also don't want to take away parking on one side of the road. That was the determination we made during the parking analysis. We didn't want to go ahead and take away parking. We're trying to make more parking, make it better for the residents. So there's really no way I can recommend that we go ahead and have a plan in the future to add edge line markings to every street. It's not going to meet the MUTCD, and I would then say we have to have an engineer study for every one of these streets where we plan to do it.
Calvin, is there a way that we can push this information out to the public, but in a very abbreviated form? I mean, definitely more condensed.
Yes.
Yeah, we could try to summarize, link people to the code, things
Yeah.
like that, but, you know, essentially we've been through a lot here. We're getting a lot of odd requests for traffic control devices.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for people to understand, you know, it's not fun. I kind of do this for a living, going through standards, evaluating standards, deciding what is and what isn't compliant. I have to do this on the building side of things. I also have to do this on the traffic side of things. I'm not insinuating that this is entertaining or fun, but what I am insinuating is that we have staff that are familiar with these regulations. We also have many on-call engineering firms, and staff is always apt to turn to management, turn to the governing body and say, the right way to handle this is to have an engineering study. If someone's really requesting a traffic control device, we need to have an engineering study. And I know that sounds expensive and it sounds like a cop-out by staff, but it's not. It's what the MUTCD recommends.
What do you recommend? What do you recommend?
I recommend that if we are going to consider the installation of traffic control devices, that we have warrant analysis conducted by one of our on-call engineering firms that specialize in traffic. And that way, we're following the MUTCD. We're not making any sort of guesstimates or approximations. We're not getting ourselves into any liability situation. With that magical seal and signature comes a lot of, you know, liability on them professionally. We should go ahead and let them absorb that from us, not put it on the city.
Calvin, I think we're planning on removing those temporary markings, right? We're gonna go out.
You know, I would certainly advise that we remove them. They're not compliant with the MUTCD. I appreciate that someone took time to try to, you know, make things safer, but they didn't comply with any known standard. The markings are not helping anything. They're actually likely causing more problems, more harm than good. They should be removed. It's not a thing we do out of spite. It's something that we do because we need uniform traffic control across the city, across the state, across the country. We need everybody to understand when they recognize and they see a traffic control device, what that means and why it's there.
Yes.
So, to answer your comment earlier, Mayor, we'll push out a quick infographic, and then when staff has the availability, we'll go and remove the markings that are out there.
Okay, thank you.
So, well, not quick question, but a smaller question. Was this just happening on just one street, or are we seeing this kind of pop up on multiple streets?
So this was just one, I wouldn't say one street because it kind of encompassed one street and spilled over to a couple more.
Okay.
But it was.
One area, maybe? Yeah,
one little area maybe, but it's just strange the number of requests we've received recently for traffic control devices. I probably spent the last 6 years and had maybe 2 or 3 requests for speed bumps or stop signs, and now it seems like we're inundated and overwhelmed with all of these odd traffic control device requests, and the answer has always been the same from
from Steve Hall, from myself, from Wayne Martin, we know that we need warrant analysis for these devices.
Yeah.
We shouldn't just be putting them up.
You have to have the metrics
Yeah.
to support it. And do we know that area where the people did the DIY stuff? Yeah, DIY stuff, if we had an increase in accidents or tickets for speeding?
Well, that's the thing, and I'd like to point out, since Steve Hall started here, we've had a tremendous number of studies, many focused on safety, and they've almost all been conducted on grant funding. We have taken tremendous strides towards improving transportation safety in the city of Manassas Park, and we can thank Steve for that. He's really been on top of this, and we are implementing soon some of the HSIP improvements. We met out on site today to start installing some speed indicator signs to try to slow people down. There are plans being formulated in place based on these studies that have been conducted, and Steve's working real hard. It takes time.
Yeah.
But no, I don't have any indication that there was any accident data, but that is something that if you read through the METCD and all these warrant discussions, that's something for an engineer to consume and say, this is a weird number of accidents at this intersection over this period of time. Maybe we should do something about this. Maybe there is a stricter standard that is warranted here, but that's not a decision for us to make.
Any comments or questions? No? Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Calvin. Thank you. City Manager, do you have anything else to report?
Nothing else except whatever questions you guys have for Parks, Fire, and I think DSS.
Okay, do we have any questions for Parks and Rec, Fire Department, or Social Services? No. No, the presentations that were in the packet were quite good. Do you have a question? No.
Oh,
Councilmember.
as
Go
far
ahead.
as the reports?
Huh?
As far as the reports?
Yeah.
No question, but I want to comment. This is amazing. We can't look at this data and not be impressed by our library. In every
Yes.
category,
Yes.
they have doubled.
Yeah.
Every category. And library visits, total programs attendance, our circulation, new cards, they have doubled their statistics from last year.
Yeah.
And that's just phenomenal.
Isn't
So,
that wonderful?
kudos to our library and library
Yeah.
staff.
Yeah.
And appreciate the reports from fire and DSS, but
Yeah.
the positive from the library was just, has to be called out. Thank you very much, all.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. There is no closed session. Any other comments from anybody? Okay. Motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, Ryan.